Hey everybody, today we're going to talk about geothermal and off-grid air conditioning, heating and cooling, but mostly cooling. So I've got a good friend, Sean Overton, who runs Dust Up's Ranch, which happens to be out in West Texas near El Paso, and it's really, really hot there during the summer. He's also off-grid, so everything is solar and generator powered, so he's trying to find a way to cool his dog houses, which are about 8 by 8, in the most energy efficient manner. So in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 primary types of geothermal off-grid cooling systems that people are building on YouTube. I'm going to put a whole bunch of links down below to my research. I'm going to talk about kind of the pros and cons of what's sort of out there and what people are making. Number 1, what I'm calling open tube. Open tube geothermal is where you dig a trench in your backyard and you lay some pipe in the ground. One end is open, the other end goes into your house. You try to get it 4 feet or more below the surface, underground. The deeper the better, but kind of 4 to 5 feet is sort of a minimum. And it works on the idea that the under the ground is a constant temperature between 60 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit, kind of anywhere you go on the hemisphere. Hey, if you find this to be interesting, drop a comment down below and give me a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more. Thanks. So if you bury a pipe in the ground, you have one end that's open to the open air, and then inside your house you have a window or a chimney. Then you have something called the stack effect, which is based on convection, which is hot air rises, and so as the hot air exits your chimney, it's the negative pressure sucks the cold air in through the pipe that's underground. So this technically works without any electricity. What most people do is they buy 4-inch drain pipe from Home Depot and they rent a backhoe or a trencher or something like that, and they dig a trench in the ground and they lay this pipe. That's sort of the easiest and the cheapest way to do it. A couple of problems with that corrugated drain pipe obviously has little ridges, and so you can get moisture trapped in those little pockets, which then can create mold if that water is sitting there. Also, since that pipe is not perfectly smooth, the air moving through it is kind of turbulent. It's not moving evenly. I have a video over here of a couple out in the desert who did it right, in my opinion. They used smooth wall PVC and a lot of it. One of the big things I see people missing on this is not using enough pipe. They think that 100 feet of tube is going to cool a 1,500 square foot house, and that's just not going to happen. The one positive example that I've seen of this actually working and working well is a guy who built an earth ship in, I think, in Arizona, and he has 3 pipes. 2 of them are 8 inches and 1 of them is 6 inches, and I think they're 250 feet long, so that's a lot of airspace. 3 pipes that are hundreds of feet that are quite large, and it's working really well for him, but that's a lot of airspace and a lot of airflow. The other advantage to the open pipe or the open tube variant, it helps keep moisture low because you've got kind of a constant airflow. Just make sure you use straight wall. And also there is a gas called radon, which is naturally occurring, that comes up out of the ground in certain places. And so by have open airflow, you help sort of keep that stuff flushed out, as opposed to option number 2, which is the closed loop system. So in a closed loop system, it's exactly what it sounds like. You run the pipe in a big U, where you take the hot air and you push it back underground and recirculate it to be constantly cooling it. So you've got this continuous loop. So you would think that it would solve, a lot of the efficiency problems because you're constantly recirculating the air. And on paper, it kind of makes the most sense. You've got two problems with that. Number one, you're constantly recirculating moisture and humidity. Also, if you have a radon gas problem in your area, you're going to be constantly recirculating that. And also, most of the people who I have seen build this haven't kind of thought their way through how the airflow works. So I've got a good example of a guy here in Texas who built this, and again, I'm not knocking him, but he put his air intake and his air exhaust on the same wall, on the same plane. And that is the least efficient way to set this up, because the cold air is coming out at one height and the warm air is coming in at the exact same height. And so I don't think he's, I mean, based on his testing, it's working on paper, but not working very well. In a perfect world, your air output would be low on the ground since cold air sinks, and your air intake would be high on the opposite wall. So like a chimney, but closed loop. So the air intake is sucking the hot air, which rises to the ceiling, out, blows it underground, cools it, and then pops it back up the other side. I've never seen anybody do it like that before, and I would really love to try it. You have to have a fan to do this because you're going to have something that circulates the air. I also have never seen anyone kind of use the right type of fan. Everyone's using AC duct fans, which means you have to have an inverter. If you look really closely on Amazon, there are 12-volt fans. I have found a 3- and a 4-inch fan that are made for boats, for motor compartments, and I've played around with some of them. Also, if you are lucky enough to get into a 6 or 8 or 10-inch pipe, you can use a car radiator fan, which I have also used, so that are straight 12 volts. So you don't have to mess around with an inverter or anything like that. You can just hook a solar panel up to it and off it goes. So closed loops might seem to be the most efficient, but you've got, you know, a problem of moisture and humidity buildup, a potential of radon gas buildup, a potential of carbon dioxide buildup, you know, if you're in a small space and you're in there breathing. So there's kind of some tactical problems on the backside. It may be the most efficient, but there's kind of other problems that sort of need to be solved. The third system that a lot of people talk about that not many people have actually built is a heat exchanger system. So in a heat exchanger system, you bury 500 feet of 1-inch PEX tubing in the ground and put a little water pump on it, and you circulate water or antifreeze through that loop, and then you run the loop to a car radiator, and you put the radiator inside your house, and then the radiator gets cold. And I actually did build this. I built this and tried it over here. I sunk a 30-gallon bucket into the ground at a friend's house, filled it with water, and and that water cooled to 70 degrees. And I circulated that water through a car radiator that I mounted in her window, and the car radiator did get cold. So this all theoretically works, and it was kind of neat to see it in action. What this solves is the radon gas and the humidity problem from circulating cold stuff through the ground. So you have two isolated systems that, you know, are not connected to each other. So it solves those problems of humidity and moisture and stuff like that. What it creates, the other problem it creates, though, is it's more technically challenging. You know, water pumps are kind of using more electricity than an air fan does. Everything has to be waterproof, obviously. You know, all your fittings have to be really super tight, so that way this thing can circulate. It's going to be noisier because that pump is going to be running constantly. And the other thing that I discovered, and people talk about, but I witnessed, is on that radiator inside your house, you're going to have condensation form. And it happened to me. So if it's humid outside, now you've got water dripping off of your air conditioner as your humidity condenses on those coils. And I had this happen. So fun kind of science experiment, but I think that the ground, the direct air system kind of makes the most sense. The last system is something that people do use, but I don't think it's really sustainable, and that is a swamp cooler. And there are a billion videos on YouTube of someone taking a 5-gallon bucket, filling it full of ice, sticking a fan on the top of the bucket and blowing their fan straight down into a bucket of ice, and wow, we magically have cold air coming out. Again, it's a fun science experiment, and it'll work for an hour or two, but then where are you going to get the ice from? And if you have enough electricity to run an ice maker to make more ice, then you have enough electricity to run a window air conditioner. So it's a cool idea, like for an outdoor baseball game or something like that, where you're kind of not near electricity, but you have it available, or you can go to the dugout and get more ice. But the idea of dumping ice into a bucket and then, you know, blowing cold air through it is just not sustainable for like an off-grid cabin. The other kind of variant of a swamp cooler is, you know, taking a towel or a sheet, dropping it in water, holding it up over a window, nailing it over a window, and having the air blow through it. And as the air blows through a wet towel, it will pick up moisture from that towel and add it into the air. And as it evaporates, the temperature cools. And people have been doing that for centuries. It only works if you are in a very dry environment, like in El Paso, but it doesn't work if you're in a humid place like Louisiana or Florida, because you can't add more moisture, humidity into the air that's already moist or humid. It also uses a lot of water. It's the same concept as a Zier pot. It goes through a lot of water as that water evaporates, like gallons of water. So if you're really, really off grid, then where water may be a precious commodity, this is probably not the best utilization of that resource. So what do I think kind of the right way to do this is an open pipe system. But what I would do is I would put a 12-volt fan on the air intake side with a small solar panel to help push the air through the pipe, but the noise is away from the house. So that way I don't have to hear this thing buzzing while I'm inside. The other thing that people really need to think about is the amount of pipe that you have. And I haven't seen any like really good scientific testing on this. My gut tells me that you're gonna need about 100 feet of 4-inch pipe per 100 square feet of living space. Okay? So if you have a bigger pipe, then you can do more square footage, but that kind of feels right to me based on my research and what I've kind of seen and played around with. The idea that 50 feet of pipe is going to cool 500 or 1,000 square feet, it to me is not possible, does not make sense. I think you're really looking at a lot more pipe for this to actually work than you would think. The closed loop system, I think, could work really well if it was built the right way. If you put the air intake on one side and the air exhaust on the other side, and if you were in a dry location where you weren't concerned about moisture buildup in the tubes, which then turns into mold, which then can make you very sick. But so it's going to be kind of in a specific situation. The heat exchange, water exchange system, based on what I have actually done myself, I don't think is worth it. I think it's a lot more complicated than it kind of needs to be. One of the other neat things about a forced air geothermal system like this is it also warms. So if the ground is 60 degrees and it's 5 degrees outside air temperature wise, then this will actually warm you up. So it's going to suck 5-degree air, push it underground and warm it to 65 to 70 degrees and then push it into your house. So you still may have supplemental heater in there to make it even warmer, but you've gotten this big boost where you don't have to be burning propane or whatever to get even warmer than that. You've gotten a free heating by just pushing it underground. So neat kind of bonus. So I hope you found this to be interesting, and hit subscribe down below and give me a thumbs up and put a comment, and we'll see you on the next one.